I want to pull people in. I'm sure you want to pull people in. We all want to pull people in to what we're doing. We want people to find out what we're passionate about and how they can fit into joining us to change their society, to change their community. Today, we're going to be talking about a couple different techniques that you can use to be effective in pulling people in. Hi, my name is Ron Book, and I'm a trainer with Grassroots Leadership Academy, and I am glad that you are here this evening as we talk about elevator pitch and tabling. As we go along, I have a great producer in Jason Edson, and if you have questions, he would love for you to drop those questions in the chat, and we'll get to those questions one way or the other. But let's try that out. And if you don't mind, just drop a note in the chat and let us know where you're watching from this evening. But having said that, let's talk about tabling and elevator pitch. The first idea that we want to talk about this evening is elevator pitch. And what is an elevator pitch? You've probably heard the term before, and as it implies, it's a pitch that you make on an elevator. But obviously, most of us don't ever get on an elevator and make a pitch. But it's the idea that if you were to get on an elevator and ride that thing all the way to the top, or get on at the top floor and go all the way down, you would have 30 seconds or maybe a minute to talk to someone while you're on the elevator. How are you going to use that time? How are you going to make the most to pull that person in to what you're doing? That's an elevator pitch. Use elevator pitches in a number of different scenarios. You might be at a social networking event where you have just a minute or two to introduce yourself to folks and draw them into what you're passionate about. It might be that you have just a minute at some other type of event, a community event, for instance, where you have a chance to talk with someone about what it is that drives you, what you're involved in, and convince them to hear more. And I guess that's key to the elevator pitch. It's all about whetting somebody's appetite so that they want to hear just a little bit more about what you're doing, how it benefits them, how they can be involved, and how together you can make change. That's the elevator pitch. I want to think a little bit about how do we go about designing our elevator pitch. It all begins with identifying our goal. My goal with the elevator pitch is not to collect a large list of people that are going to volunteer for me. Eventually, I'd love to get there. But the reality is that's not the right goal. The goal of an elevator pitch is to let someone know just enough about what you're doing that they want to hear more. Ultimately, your goal ought to be to find the time that you can visit with that person or introduce to that person what it is that you're doing. That might ultimately be you sitting down and having coffee with them and telling them a little bit more about your organization, what you hope to accomplish, finding out what their interests are, what they hope to accomplish. Or it could be that you have a number of different events going on in the community and you're able to invite them to come and see what's going on. I think that is so valuable because many people today like anonymity. They like to test things out without making a commitment right up front. And so having that event or having an opportunity to meet someone and just kind of share what you're doing is a golden opportunity to expand your community, to expand your volunteer base, to bring people in. And isn't that what we want to do? And so that's your goal. Identify your goals. Specifically think about, am I trying to set up one-on-ones and get people to coffee? Am I trying to get people to come to my next event or to find out in a different setting how they can be involved in what we're doing? You might practice your elevator pitch by recording yourself or standing in front of a mirror and practicing your pitch, getting the language just right, remembering the different components of an elevator pitch, but practice that. I like to encourage folks to remember the 55-38-7 rule. This was a rule that was established by Albert Muradin of University of California, Los Angeles. Back in the 1960s, he did a number of studies on the impact of nonverbal communication on our emotions and our emotional effect on the believability of our message. And what he found is when you really look at what people decide is believable in a conversation, and what really impacts their emotions was the facial movements that they used in their conversations or the body language that they use. That's the 55%. And think about that. I mean, when you can look in somebody's eyes, when you can trust their smile, when you can see what they're doing with their eyes, many times that's what we decide is believable. But he also talked about other paralanguage tools like the rate of our speech or the inflection of our speech or the rhythm of how we're saying what we're saying. That's the 38% that really conveys believability to folks. And really, the words that we use themselves, only about 7% of what people really use to decide whether or not a message is believable or not. So when you're on that elevator with someone, or you're at that networking lunch, or you're at some community event and you're talking with someone, think about what your face looks like. Think about your body language and your posture. Think about the rate of your speech and the rhythm of your speech, how it affects whether or not they believe what you're saying. It also affects whether or not they're going to give you attention to what you're saying. If you talk real slow, or if you talk real quiet, chances are good that people are not going to feel invested in what you're saying. So those are some things to keep in mind. Those are things that you can master with practice. In fact, Usain Bolt made the comment a number of years ago after winning the Olympic gold for the second, third time, as he represented his nation of Jamaica. He said, I practiced 4 years. I worked hard for 4 years for a 9-second race. And too often people give up after 2 months. His point was, in order for him to master, in order for him to get to that level where he could run 100 yards in 9 seconds and beat a field of talented sprinters, he had to work and work and work. And so we shouldn't feel bad if it takes us some time to work on our elevator pitch to make it the most effective that it can be. So what are some of the components to an elevator pitch? The first part is we want to think about the benefit. We have just a few seconds to sell someone on hearing more about what we're trying to do. And so we're not trying to tell them what we do. We're not even trying to tell them what our product or service is. What we're trying to do is help them to see how their world would be better. What would be the benefit if they had our product, if they had our service, if they joined us, than if they didn't have our product service or if they didn't join us. So what is that benefit? It's what the world looks like when your product, service, or organization is employed. At Grassroots Leadership Academy, we have an awesome mission statement. That mission statement is that we work to empower and educate citizens to promote a society of equal rights and mutual benefit with limited coercion and a strong bias towards liberty. I love that mission statement. But if I got on the elevator and started telling people randomly on the elevator, hey, I'm here to empower and educate, chances are pretty good people aren't going to want to listen to that message. And so if I was on an elevator or in a networking setting or at a community event and I had a chance to just have 30 seconds to grab somebody's attention, instead of giving them my mission statement, I might say, I help people change their lives by changing their communities. That's a stronger why message that's going to whet some people's appetite to want to ask, well, how do you change people's lives by changing their communities? And people might have all sorts of questions about that. But you see, that's the hook that's going to prompt them to want to know more. And that's what you're after in an elevator pitch. So what is the benefit? The benefit is I help people change their lives by them changing their community. That's the benefit, the changed lives, the improved lives. What comes next? Next, I want to talk about the differentiator. That is, what makes my organization or my work different from what other folks are doing? There's a lot of different educational folks, a lot of different training organizations that will teach people about public speaking, that will teach people about networking and all sorts of different things that we need to be effective in a grassroots environment. So what makes you different? Well, at Grassroots Leadership Academy, one way that I can spell out a difference is I might talk about how we've been able to make a difference in some communities. For instance, I might talk about how in Arkansas, we were able to equip citizen activists to educate their lawmakers about the positive nature of educational choice. And because of that, over time, legislators in Arkansas gave parents educational choice. That's a win. It's a real win that I can point to say, that's a difference we made. We helped everyday citizens know how to talk to their lawmakers to make that change happen. I could talk about in South Carolina how Grassroots Leadership Academy trains citizens to talk to their lawmakers about certificate of need, a policy that prevented healthcare providers from expanding by building new businesses or bringing in innovative products without getting a certificate from the state saying that's really needed. It really hurt a lot of people because it denied access to medical care that they might otherwise have had. And so I can point to that and say, we were able to train people to talk to their lawmakers. And now in South Carolina, medical providers don't have to get permission to open their doors. And that benefits everyone. You see, that's a change in community that comes about by helping people know how to change their lives. And that's what we do at Grassroots Leadership Academy. That's a differentiator. Now that I have my differentiator, I'm going to make my ask. And as I alluded to earlier, the ask is not, can you volunteer to go do these things over here? Or it's not, would you love to donate some money to our cause? That's not what we're after. What we're after is an opportunity to tell people more about what we're doing, to find out how they might be interested in joining us in what we're doing. So my ask needs to be for an opportunity to have that conversation. And it can happen over coffee, or it can happen at an event that I already have planned. So I need to think about what my ask is going to be. And you can pursue the individual coffees, and that's perfectly fine. I also happen to like having 2 or 3 events coming up, and that allows me to invite people to come to these events. It's low commitment for them. And what I mean for that is it gives them a chance to come to an event. They don't have to commit to do anything, but they can kind of see, hey, this is a legitimate organization, and there are real people that are involved here, and this is some real things that they're getting involved in. And then they can begin to decide, hey, is this something that I would be interested in doing? Are there things, talents that I have that I could commit and invest in with this organization? The one-on-one coffees are great too, because it allows you to sit down with people and really share what is the purpose of your organization. What is it that your organization is all about? And you can discuss that with folks and they can measure for themselves, is this something I want to be involved in? You can find out through a one-on-one coffee what people are interested in doing, what their skill sets are, and how they might plug those skill sets into what you're trying to accomplish. But the point of the ask is not getting someone to volunteer right away. It's building a community. It's expanding your volunteer base by finding those folks that are really bought into what you're doing, and you're bought into using their skills and their abilities the way they want to use those skills and abilities. So that's the power of the pitch. One of the places that you can use the elevator pitch is tabling events. Tabling events are opportunities where you can go to a community event. Maybe you go to a conference somewhere. Maybe you go to someplace else where you're able to have a vendor space. And in that vendor space or that conference or that community event, you're able to have a table. And on that table, you're talking about what you're doing. And you're trying to find those folks who are at that conference or that community event that might be interested in what you're trying to do. All sorts of people are going to walk up and down the aisle at those conferences or that community event, and you want to find the ones that are right to work with your organization. And so tabling is a powerful tool for helping you find those folks. And using your elevator pitch at a tabling event is the right way to combine both of those tools to bring people in to what you're trying to do. So what do you do at a table? Well, first of all, to bring people into the table, you want to have swag. Now, that's just another way. You're probably familiar with that term, but just in case it's a new term for you, swag simply means having all sorts of marketing materials that have your branding on it. We like to have sunglasses that say Grassroots Leadership Academy, or baseball caps with Grass Leadership Academy on it. Those are types of things that people really like, and they will come to your table just to see, hey, what's going on there? What do those folks have? And it draws folks in. But it also provides an opportunity for people to be prompted later when they get home about their conversation with you. And so when you get ready to get your swag or your branded material, there are all sorts of organizations that have all sorts of different types of swag. Try to find some things that would really be interested to the audience where you're going to be tabling. And when you have that, then you're able to use those tools to bring folks in. So have plenty of swag. Have pens, ink pens, that you're able to use for people to record information as you're visiting with them. You want to have them sign up. You want to have them sign in at your table. And they can't do that if they don't have an ink pen. Most people don't necessarily carry ink pens with them. And so make sure that you have pens, writing utensils for people to record their information so you can follow up with them later. And obviously you want to have people working your table. We're going to talk specifically about our 2x2x2 rule for working crowds and tabling at events. So we'll talk more specifically about that in just a minute. But just know you want to have people working your booth. Now, I will say this. I have worked in the grassroots arena for years and years. And I do have a pet peeve when it comes to tabling. Because there's been so many times with a number of different organizations that I've worked with, or a number of different groups that I've worked with, that I come to their table where there's going to be tabling, and there's 3 or 4 people back there, and they're all just shooting the breeze with each other. They have the same mindset on some specific issues. And so they're just really tag teaming, going back and forth about their thoughts on that issue. Or maybe they're complaining about something that's going on down at City Hall or at the state capitol or in DC, right? I mean, that's a great time of fellowship. The problem is there's all these people walking by. They're there to meet these folks and to shake their hand and to get to know them and to bring them into what they're doing. And those are moments lost. So make sure that you have people that are ready to engage, not with each other. There'll be plenty of time for that, but are ready to engage with the people at the event, the conference, the community event, whatever the event is that's having you as a vendor at their event. So think about who are the right people for those roles. And obviously, you want to have something on your table. Besides the swag, you want to have a tablecloth. We have beautiful tablecloths that say Grassroots Leadership Academy. Some of your tables may be 4-foot tables or 6-foot or 8-foot or 12-foot tables, depending on the event that you're at. So I recommend getting a tablecloth that's going to be large enough to cover some of those typical tables of 8 feet, maybe 10 feet, and have some space at the end so that if you have shorter tables, it's okay to have it kind of bunched up at the end. And then obviously you want to have the table itself. Don't assume because you've been invited to a community event that they're going to provide a table. There's a number of things you need to do in conversations with the organizer before you have that tabling event. You want to have a conversation about what the booth is going to look like, how wide and how deep the booth is going to be. Hopefully, you can talk with them about the best placement for your organization at their event. But you also want to ask about whether or not there's going to be power at that booth. If you have something that you're going to display on your laptop or on some other electronic device, you want to make sure that there's power there for that device. And the worst thing is that's the main attraction at your booth, and you get there and there's no electricity. What are you going to do now? So have those conversations, but a key element to never forget when you're talking with the organizer is, are you bringing the table or am I? And I would recommend going to one of these big box stores or maybe a mom and pop store. It doesn't really matter to me, but go to a store that sells folding tables, the rectangular folding tables, and invest in some of those so that you can take those with you. So when you get to an event, if there's been some sort of miscommunication, you still have your table. So those are some key tips on what your table needs. But what are some other things you might need? Obviously, you need a sign-in sheet. And I would say have multiple sign-in sheets. We're going to see some pictures in a moment of some samples, examples of table, and you're going to see some sign-up sheets in the middle of the table. Well, that's great if you're dealing with one person, but wouldn't it be great if you had multiple folks coming to your table at the same time? What you don't want to have happen is you're talking with one person and it's a great conversation and you're really having some good dialogue, but there's two or three other folks close by. That would be even more effective conversations, but you can't get to them all and you miss it altogether because there's no place for them to sign because the sign-in sheet's at the center of the table. So have multiple sign-in sheets. Have them on clipboards so that that real tall guy can easily fill out the form and that lady can fill out the form without feeling like something embarrassing is happening there. And so have it on the clipboard so people can raise the clipboard where they feel comfortable and they're able to fill out the information and give it back to you quickly. Or maybe they can easily hand it to someone else that's waiting at the table. All of those things are good reasons to have clipboards at the table and have your sign-up sheets on the clipboards. I would also recommend having QR codes on every page of your sign-in sheet and maybe having a couple other displays of your QR code. You want your QR code to take people to a Google form or some other platform that allows them to electronically sign up. And there are plenty of folks that have no problem signing up on a paper sign-in sheet. But there are some folks, a lot of folks today, that just want to shoot it with their phone and fill it out as they walk away or as they do some other things. Of course, I always recommend you try to get people to sign up while they're there, because the moment they walk away, their attention's drawn someplace else. But if you have a QR code, they're able to fill it out in a comfortable fashion. If they type in their information, I can guarantee you that's much more legible than those folks that write on the sign-in sheet, because some of those signatures, including mine, are not so readable. So a QR code is golden, and I'm glad we have the technology today to use it. But have those sign-in sheets. Have plenty of materials about your group and what you're doing at your table so that people can get that information. You might have a couple different pieces. You might have a generic piece that just kind of highlights contact information and some things about your organization. But if there are specific issues or specific things that your organization is working on, you might have information about those efforts as well. And that way you're able to attract a broad audience, but also those folks that are very passionate about some of the key issues that you're working on. And obviously you want to be able to have your business cards there. You want to be able to have other means of introducing yourself to the folks that are coming by your table. Now, here's an example of some missed opportunities. If you look at this picture real closely, you're going to notice a couple of things. One of those things is another pet peeve I have for tailoring. If you notice at the bottom right-hand corner of this picture, there's a plate of food. And behind the plate of food, there's another staffer sitting at the table. You just see his elbow maybe, or her elbow maybe. You don't even see the full face. But the person is turned as if they're have their attention drawn someplace else. You don't want to have that at your table. You want people to find your table neat and orderly and engaging. And so you want to avoid those types of things. You'll also notice at this table, there's no tablecloth. There's nothing that tells people from a distance, oh, here's this organization. I think I want to go check them out. I want to find out what they're doing. That's an intriguing name. You got to get right up to this table in order to see even what the name of the organization is. And so people walking by, unless they just really want to talk to strangers, have no reason to come to this table. And so you want to make sure you have that tablecloth that really draws people in. There's no information here for folks to find out more about the organization. There's really no effective sign-in sheet at this table. So you can see how not having those things prevents people from finding an effective tabling experience. Yeah, there's a lady at this table, but just one. Imagine how many more might be drawn to this table if it was more effectively established and created. Take a look at this table. This is a Grassroots Leadership Academy tabling setup before an event begins. And as you look at this, you notice, first of all, the prominence of the GLA tablecloth. I mean, it has big letters down there, right? Grassroots Leadership Academy. I mean, you could be walking down the corridor and see that, and man, you would really know, hey, over there is Grassroots Leadership Academy. If you didn't know anything about GLA, you might be drawn to, what is that? Is that a college? Is that a school? Is that a education organization? What exactly is that? And those questions might draw folks in. You'll notice also on this table, you have some of those sunglasses I referenced earlier. You also have stickers that a lot of people just really like stickers. But then you also have that sign-in sheet. And you have pins ready for folks that are ready to sign in. You have a couple other brochures there as well. I mentioned earlier the 2x2x2 staffing model that we use. We like to recommend our team have 2 people at the table ready to engage the folks coming by. And they need to be not talking with each other. I mean, that's okay. I like folks, I want to talk to them. But you're really there focused on the people that are at the conference or at the event. And you want to make sure that those folks are talking with them. Secondly, we want to have a couple people out front kind of working as what I call carnival barkers. I'm sure you've been to a state fair, or you've been to a county fair, or you've been to a carnival of some sort. I mean, those guys that are really effective at taking your money at the baseball games or the basketball games and knocking down the bottles and flipping the rings and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they don't just sit back and watch people walk by. They know in order to get somebody to come in and spend their money, they have to draw those folks in. And so they call people out loud, hey, come win a teddy bear. And they see you coming maybe with a girlfriend or a lady or somebody else. And hey, win this teddy bear for her. You know, they know how to draw you in. Or they see you with that cute little kid. Hey, don't you want to win a teddy bear for the little girl or little boy? And so you want a couple people that can kind of do some of those same things. You want somebody that's able to engage the people walking by and say, hey, come hear what Grassroots Leadership Academy is doing to get people ready to talk about this issue, whatever the issue of the conference is, or whatever the issue of the event is. You get those people out talking and you direct them in, you funnel them to your table, and then you've got your team at the table ready to talk to them about what it is you're doing. You might have a couple other folks as well out in the crowd, kind of working the crowd over, drawing people over. Hey, have you been to the GLA table? I've heard they've got some great candy at that table. They've got some great swag at that table. Hey, did I see you at the conference session talking about parent empowerment? Man, Grassroots Leadership Academy has some great activities that they have going up in the next couple of months. You need to go by their table and see what they're doing on that topic. And so those are some examples of how you use this 2x2x2 to really be effective. Now think about what you're doing there. Your purpose is not to necessarily get your next phone bank or your next block walk or your next volunteer opportunity or your next donor opportunity all filled out in one day. I mean, that would not be bad stuff. But the reality is you're there seeking opportunities to tell people more about what you're doing so they can see how what they're doing is aligned with what you're doing. And that together you can really make some change. And so that's what tabling is all about. I hope you've been able to put your comments in the chat and been able to ask some good questions. And I'm sure Jason's done a great job of tracking those questions. And we hope to get to all of those questions. But I've enjoyed my time with you. I want to remind you that next Monday night at 7:30, we'll be right back here to talk about insights to action. And on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we'll have our conversations, our how-to conversations with our very own Jason Edson. I hope you'll make plans to join that. But remember, we're here every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern Time. Looking forward to Grassroots Leadership Academy conversations to equip you to be the best that you can be in pulling people in so that together you can make change in communities and in our society and in our country. I'm Ron Book. Have a great evening. And remember, pull people in to what you're doing to make change.